all your friends for another night of plastic cup politics.
Nope, just kidding. How you guys doing tonight? Tonight is fucking, what is it, Wednesday? It is Wednesday. I'm losing track of time, but I'm really stoked because tonight I've got Ryan Stone coming on the show. And, but before I bring him on the stage, I just had like an absolutely mind-blowing thing just happen within the last, like, I don't know, couple of hours is really when this happened. But I need to show you guys a quick YouTube video because this just blew my mind.
I'm the CEO of dankrenee.com. Of course Canada isn't real. Duh. In 2001, during the attacks on 9/11, George W. Bush snuck a confidential document into the Library of Congress. This is that document. Ladies and gentlemen, I present to you a map of the entire universe. As you can clearly see, there isn't a Canada. Where are Canada? I mean, it's pretty obvious to me. Canada isn't real. Just look at the map. And you don't need no Dora the Explorer to figure it out, okay? Not even the map in her backpack is going to be able to get her to Canada, right? It's not there, okay? Dora the Explorer isn't going to Canada because she can't. Thanks for watching. I'm the CEO of dankrenee.com. Always spread the truth. Canada isn't real. Knowledge is power.
Honestly, I am shocked. I was shocked. Imagine when I found out that the person that's coming on my show tonight is a real Canadian. Like he claims to be. Like, and I don't know. I'm bringing on. We'll talk to him real quick. Ryan,
you son of a bitch.
What's up?
What have you done to my boy? You massacred my boy.
So what is Canada a psyop?
I would love it if it was a psyop. It's so much more dystopic than that. You know what Canada is? Canada is there when you guys complain about your freedoms for us to go, oh, that's fine. We had that 10 years ago. That's why Canada's here. And then for thinly veiled White House burning threats. And
then the White House continues to just put things in action that turn us into Canada over time.
Oh,
it's a slow process, but we're figuring things out here. So, Coach Stone, how are you doing tonight?
Who told you that? Do you even know? Do you know where that comes from?
I have no fucking clue.
I'm gonna give you the Jack Murphy heartfelt FU convert. There's some lore. There's an iceberg, whatever. So the coach thing started because a lot of guys started calling me coaches because there was life coaches all over the fucking place on here. And I broke the cardinal rule of the internet. It's like never tell the internet you have a pet peeve because they'll just run a train through it. And so I'm like, these guys, if they coach the Raiders and the Raiders lost, they fire the coach. You can't have Pat fucking, can I swear?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay. Please. Pat Stedman trying to be a relationship lifestyle coach. If he F's up your relationship, what happens to him? He just gets another client. So I'm like, there is no coaches. So then everybody started calling me coach. And then they started calling me couch. And so now I'm like, that's like, you don't pick your nickname. Rick Rollo gets the godfather of the whatever. I get couch.
I love
couch
that.
And coach. So whoever told you that is trying to get me like angry.
That's hilarious. I mean, are we gonna like be able to see like someone just pour Gatorade over your head at some point in the middle of the podcast?
Like dude, I would prefer that. The Canadian version of Gatorade. It's much better.
Oh fuck. All right. So Ryan, I guess tell us a little bit about yourself. Tell us like who you are. I'm just kind of like, I guess, life story spiel. This is
Batman origin story.
Yeah.
All right. So this is how Bruce Wayne's parents died. Now, honestly, depends who you ask. How far do I want to go? I was raised on a ranch, small town, BC, 1,000 head of cattle, 1,000 acres, all kinds of animals. I think we were talking with your girl there, and we apparently had the same kind of raised around like a cornucopia of animals.
Yep.
After that, my parents owned a logging company, a cement plant. Got some dealings with the Angels back in the day. Left that, decided to rebel against the family, go to university, decided to become a graphic designer, did that for a couple years. Got really bored with that, and then I joined the military. I was in the Royal Canadian Navy for about 13 years as a communicator.
What makes the Navy of Canada royal at all? Like, did people in Britain even think about Canada? Do they even remember it exists?
Oh,
Well,
they
like, it's a psyop, so I don't know.
It's jeez. We're still the Dominion, damn it. No, we're just like America, except for you guys did a war to escape the Brits. We just waited 100 years, and then in '86, we're like, we'll just do our own laws if that's cool. And they're like, yeah, whatever.
And by that time, they've just totally forgot about you guys, and they're like,
Yeah.
fine, just take
And
it.
And at the time, they didn't call it the Royal Canadian Navy. They just called it the Canadian Navy. But they
Okay.
added the royal part to it because they're trying to add some more pride in your country. Boy, that didn't last long. Lasted until about 2015.
Oh
And
god,
then
I can't imagine being like patriotic about Canada.
I am, but I mean, we can get into that later if you want.
Okay, all right.
At one point, my unit, I had a really shitty situation. He tried charging me with espionage.
Nice.
Totally out of the blue. Yeah, I wasn't I'm not a spy, so of course.
So you're not even going to admit that it's a psyop because you're part of it.
Well, I went up against the psyop and I won.
Okay, all right.
It just turns out it was right at the same time this guy Jeffrey Delisle was actually selling secrets to the Russians. Went to jail for it. And for if you don't know the military, for when something happens, everybody flips the fuck out, panic and nonstop, and then they slowly walk it back. I kind of got caught up in that. It was probably the worst 14 months of my life, military prison without due process. I essentially had to go to war against. I eventually got the Supreme, the military's version of the Supreme Court. Finally got all that stuff thrown out. And then I decided to move on. Worked corporate for a couple years there. I was doing a lot of information security, which was great. Governance documents, so much better. Just wear a suit every day. You get tired of the suit. I'm like, are you crazy? Do you know what a uniform's like? This is great.
Yeah.
And then one day I was talking with a buddy of mine, Rich Cooper. We were down at a convention, which I was invited by this other guy, Rollo Tomazzi, to go speak at on the red pill stuff. And the company did a round of layoffs. So I came back to a layoff and I'm like, you know what? I got nothing else to do. I have a 2-year nest egg. I'm going to take a sabbatical and I'm going to try running a business. I'll give it 6 months. And if it could pay the mortgage in 6 months, I'll stick with it. And that was 5 years ago. And I'm like, son of a bitch. So I kind of accidentally got into this. And because the military, I had done a lot of military messaging. I didn't know how to write. I wrote I was illiterate.
Well,
if you've ever seen
that's hilarious, given that you're an author.
Well, that's why I decided to become one. I'm like, I need to learn how to write proper prose again.
I was in the military as well. I was in the infantry for a couple of years here.
Oh, nice.
In the States. And I understand the demographic of people you were probably originally trying to talk to then at that. I'm sure that a lot of the stuff you write about, it absolutely would apply to a lot of men in the military, especially.
Well, that was the first book. That was Fuck Files. A lot of that was just because I was reading Peterson's book, the 12 Rules for Life, and I'm like, this is kind of bland and pablum. It's kind of annoying. I wish it was stuff that was more practical and applicable. And I remember Neil Strauss. Remember The Game? You wrote that back in 2006.
Okay,
or something.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
I'm like, I like this one too. It was about him and mystery doing pickup and stuff. And I kind of did that because when I was in the military, I was sailing 180 days out of the year. So if I wanted to have any kind of a love life, I had to learn how to make it work. Or I had to just basically, buy a sex doll or something. So I'm like, no. I might as well make a game out of it so it's fun. And I liked his book, but his was there was no story to it. It was just a bunch of guys did things. They went crazy and then they moved on. I'm like, could have been a bit of a happier ending. And then Women by Charles Bukowski. And that one I like too, but I'm like, it's kind of degenerate. So I took all three of those things. What is it that I wish those three ones had? And I made the book that was a combination of that. So because Jordan was $30 for 12 rules. I'm like, I'll just do $10 and I'll add 15 rules. So you get 3 extra rules for 10 less bucks. It's a great deal. And then I read it like a military document. It was mostly just sailor stories that we had gone through. And then me going from being single and no love life to having a great love life to getting a girlfriend. And interspersed with the stories were just, life lessons, things that could be applicable. And ideally other people should have hey, I've had something like that happen to me, and just kind of shows that we all have a lot of the same issues. That was the intent anyway. Whether it landed, I don't know.
Yeah, I mean, and so you you went on like, so your first book that you wrote was called Fuck Files,
Yeah.
and then the two books that I have here are
Ah.
part of a 3-volume set, right? But the third book is not to be; it's about to be released, correct?
Everybody keeps wanting a third volume, but there isn't no third volume. It's
Oh,
actually,
okay.
yeah. So you're talking about Praxeologies volume 1 and 2. One is
Praxeology,
Frame.
volume 1, 2. Frame,
Oh, look at you.
Frame is the first one. I got Dread. Good shit. I've been like stoned out of my mind on painkillers for the last couple weeks, so I haven't
And
been
you
able to
say
read
Canada doesn't
really at all.
exist.
Dude, imagine watching the video I just saw on painkillers. You would believe it too. Okay. So I'm just saying, skimming through it, like obviously it was nice of Rolo to have a good forward on Frame too. He's a nice guy. And I actually like, I can see why you guys work well together. I think that you guys like, kind of understand, some of the nuance and the reality of things. Whereas
I wouldn't say nuance. I think it's just like competence.
yeah, well, that's what I guess. Like, it's more like you're a little bit more realistic in your approach, I think, than most
Yeah.
of the other people that are in the red pill stuff.
Okay,
Like
do you want me to go
Myron
off? Like
Gaines.
we can go off if you want. Because
I mean,
I have
sure,
nothing. I will name names. I have nothing nice to
you
say
can
about
go
people
off
you're referencing.
as much as you want to go off, brother. I mean,
Look, I will tell you. Okay, here, I'll start with this then. We'll back up. I know I'm cutting you off a bunch here, but this
No,
is
you're
something I really
good.
give a shit about. I have been in this thing we call the red pill for at least 10 years now. Like Rolo's probably been in about 20. And when I see these flash in the pan people that take like, you know how people take Christianity and they a la carte and they're like, well, this saying means I can do this, and this
Yeah,
saying means I can do that.
yeah. It's
That's what
exactly.
Myron and Pearl and Andrew Tate did. They took it and they wore it as a skin suit and they tried to sell it being an ass model on Instagram. I will never forgive that big redheaded gummy bitch or that giant fake ass Muslim guy for what they've done to my boy.
Myron Gaines is just pussy in bio if that was personified into a person.
Oh, whoever said that, that's pretty good. I like that.
I said that. I made a post about that the other day. It got like 3 likes. Nobody gave a fuck, but like I'm saying it now because I didn't forget. So
It deserves a bigger reach.
I appreciate that. But yeah, like I agree, man. Like they just like I think that they misinterpret a lot of the things. Like and
They don't
not
care.
just misinterpret, they just like when people take the Bible out of context and they just like flip it upside down to say like now like I think every pastor should have a fucking plane or something like that. I don't know. You know what I mean? Like they've taken like Rule 0 and they've just like manipulated it and distorted it to the point where like I think a lot of the original ideas that Rollo had, like they've just I don't know. It's kind of like distorted the whole image of your whole red pill movement or philosophy. I'm sorry,
it's not a movement. It's not a philosophy.
Praxeology.
Yeah,
I
know it sounds like it's semantics, and don't have to be sorry. There's a deliberate reason why words are what they are.
I agree.
It's not a philosophy because philosophy is all about like the odds, right? What should happen. It's not a movement because we're not in a group.
I saw Myron like being Creatrix saw this video the other day where like he was like saying like he thought vagina was nasty. So I was like, dude, this guy's a complete.
Yeah, well, I mean, I also saw him suggest that a girl gives him a blowjob to get on his podcast. So what the fuck do I know?
There's no way, dude. That guy looks. I don't know. Like
Didn't you see that little? All right, whatever. Yeah, no, but the whole point of it, and it's the same thing. It's like where you're like, oh, Rolo's idea is this and my idea is that. They're not our ideas. They kind of fundamentally, like a lot of people still misunderstand what the hell the whole point of the red pill is. It's not
just Rule 0, right? Like that's like literally your point.
Swapping notes with other men over male sexual strategy and positive male identity. It's kind of what it evolved from.
Right.
I've tried things. This worked for me. This didn't work for me. And then if enough people do it, you give enough anecdotal data points together that you can kind of figure a best guess. It's kind of like auto mechanics, or it's kind of like we were talking shop with the microphones earlier. It's the same thing there. We're not, technical wizards on it. We don't have studies on it, but you mentioned why to use your microphone or why would I want this microphone and the kind of things that work.
Here's the thing, like when it comes to like this type of stuff, like getting into relationships, maintaining relationships and all that stuff. I think we do have like a lot of like some similar view terms in terms of like we've talked kind of back and forth about how like in a lot of cases getting married makes no sense. So you can get nothing out of a marriage for a lot of people who aren't religious. They get the exact same thing just out of a long-term relationship. You know what I mean? So like
I ask so many people that it is fun. There's never an answer.
It
I'm like, what
triggers
is
the
it?
fuck out of them though. Like it
Yeah.
triggers them
But
so
that's
bad.
just it. Like, what even is marriage? Because I asked them this, and everybody seems to default to the government legal status because it's not a
Exactly.
contract.
But like really it's supposed to be some kind of like sacrament between two people. It's supposed to be like some kind of spiritual thing. And like that's something you stand for and you believe in. Then I think it's a beautiful thing. I think that that's something that they should do and
Yeah, it's a
it's something
choice.
that they should want to do. But I absolutely don't think the government should ever be involved with it whatsoever, especially for something as stupid as a tax break. That is
There's the NCAP stuff. Yeah, yeah. So I mean,
yeah,
we come
yeah.
to the similar kind of conclusions. Everybody realized this, right? Like, what do
Right.
you get out of it? There's no fidelity. She can cheat. It's not illegal. Infidelity laws have been off the books for years now. There's no guarantee of sex. In fact, it's a criminal offense to even assume that. I think they call it marital grape. So what is it you get? And everybody's like, well, you do it for the kids. It's like, well, what do the kids get out of it? Nothing really.
You can get that's so stupid though, because like if you have a kid, you can also have a private contract with another human that doesn't involve the government as well. Now, how do
Yeah.
you like maintain the contract or whatever? You know, maybe if some rules are broken and there's a split or something, maybe then you can involve whatever government you have. I'm not
Well,
gonna live
that's
in
the thing. Now you kind
Ancapistan
of,
there, you
at
know,
least in
but
Canada, you have to because they call it common law, and that's
oh
just you're
sure. Yeah,
together,
yeah.
and they'll declare you the equivalent of marriage. As soon as there's a kid involved, all of a sudden the rights of the child, there's going to be certain legal stipulations. So the legal aspects there, whether you want it or not. But I totally agree. All I do,
Yeah.
like with my girl, we've been together 14 years. I think 14, 15. I don't know. It's where you lose count anyway.
Yeah.
And every day
No.
we just wake up. It's like, oh, I'll stick with her. And she's every day she'll wake up. It's like, I'll stick with him. And then if we leave, we leave. But there's nothing, there's no like, oh, she's going to take my house and my stuff. Like there's none of that as a
Yeah.
chain holding us together in some kind of resentful situation. And it works
Right.
just fine. It's like I can still get her a ring. She can still have a party, whatever.
Well, that's what I'm saying is like there's things that like people who aren't religious can do to celebrate their awesome relationship, have a huge party or a celebration or even a ceremony.
Yeah.
I like who cares? Like that's all cool. That's it. But that's not like marriage. Like
No.
that's not like a religious sacrament, like you know a ceremony or whatever.
Sacrament and that. Yeah. Well, as it stands
sacrament.
right now, it's just not. It's bad. It's not helpful to men. I wouldn't want to say bad. I shouldn't use the ought words. I don't like using should or
Mm.
ought. I like saying like it's not useful because it's like there's
Yeah.
like a small distinction here. You know, most guys say don't get married, don't get married. Red pill wise, that's not accurate way to put it. You should say
Right.
marriage, or you're supposed to say marriage is not a good deal for men. The difference is one's a categorical imperative and one's a hypothetical. You know,
Yeah.
I'm not telling you what to do. Otherwise, if you're just like, oh, I'm going to leave the church and join the red pills, like all you're doing is switching one dad 2.0 for another. Tell me what to do, daddy.
And which
Like,
which
no.
version of the Bible are you going to read? Are you going to read the Rollo and Ryan Stone version, or are you going to read the Myron and Pearl version of the Bible? Which one
Yeah,
is
but you
it?
see what I mean? It's like everybody's
Yeah.
offloading the responsibility of their own lives onto some authority. And then when you
Right.
get Steven Crowder, or what's the newest one? Who's the football guy? Tom Brady? Was he the one that just got dragged? His wife
Oh,
was cheating on him?
because Giselle like slept with her Brazilian jiu-jitsu coach. Like,
Something like that.
is that what you're talking about? Because
Yeah,
that
that one there.
over the last day or so, like Tom Brady like knew for years, I guess, that she was sleeping with her jiu-jitsu instructor.
Yeah.
While he's busy like going making
Winning Super Bowls.
hundreds of million winning Super Bowls and shit. Like,
Yeah.
like okay.
Gotta get these Super Bowl rings in before Taylor Swift takes the league.
I mean, and like this is one side of things. Like let's be completely honest with you. Like a lot of people that are in professional sports, when it's regular season, it's open season. You know what I'm saying?
Yeah,
So
fair enough.
it's true. But you know, like I know that's not true for all of them, but like who knows when you're at
But
that
that's the
level.
point, right? Like everybody's
Yeah.
like, "Oh, just make a bunch of money, you'll be fine. Just get a six-pack abs, you'll be fine. Just
But-
become the pinnacle of like every these
Staying-
people
it's
that
the
have."
epitome of staying together for the kids. And I'm like that's basically what Tom Brady and Giselle were doing, but it's also what a lot of these other people are doing too. And it's actually like super not healthy for the kids to
Oh,
have them
yeah,
in an
no.
environment that's toxic like that. People don't
That's
talk
actually-
about that side of it at all.
It's actually in Dread where I talk about the one guy who had come to that conclusion because his wife, he was a pharmacist, his wife was an
Mm.
alcoholic, and he was addicted to pills. She liked it because it was like an enabler. And then he's like, you know what? We got kids. I can't beat this guy anymore. So he decided to clean himself up, get better. Wife didn't like that, how it made her feel bad. And so he had to make the choice. It's like, do I be sober for my kids or do I stay with my wife for the kids? And he has like, I'd rather leave. And the
Mm.
lesson there is like being 100% father 50% of the time is better than being a 50% dad 100% of the time.
Yeah.
And that's what both these books, that's why they're not my ideas. They're hundreds of other guys who are trying things out, and all the things that were kind of important enough to talk about in a relationship, and
I think that's
what
the
they learned
point.
out of it.
Like that's the point, right? Like
Yeah.
it's men getting together, talking together about like what works, what doesn't work, what's working for them, what doesn't work for them. Because like, but I
Yeah.
think that you guys are like more realistic in the sense where like you understand that like what works and what worked for you isn't like I mean maybe I'm wrong here, but it's
No,
not
you're
something
right.
that worked for everybody. Because like I think that like there's some tactics or there's a negative side to what dread is that some people would say like if I had tried doing that with my girlfriend, that would have not worked. She would have told me to kick rocks if I did it in the wrong way. Maybe
See, now
maybe
there's
I'm talking. Yeah.
no, you're right, but it's kind of like this is what frame is all about. The idea of frame. It's like I think Dr. Thomas Seeger put it the best. Ice Baths just had his book come out, because I have a hard time describing what frame is. And he's like, it's more like a
Mm.
metaphor, and he's right. It's like the concept of frame control. It's what worldview do you bring to your decisions? What narratives do you use to anchor your decisions off of? So for you, when you're saying, if I'd have done that, it wouldn't have worked. Like worked. Define worked. What do you mean by worked? My wife would have just kicked me out.
Right.
Is a divorce a fail state? In some cases, probably not. Sometimes, and that's another chapter in there, sometimes your wife is a fucking dud, but you don't know that because you're also a dud. So the idea is you fix yourself up, get to
Yeah.
that point where you have some abundance, and you have a clearer head and a clear understanding about what you want and what you expect. And then, yeah, maybe you deciding to lay out your boundary is like, whatever fictional example you wanted to come up with. And if she says, I'm not putting up with that, kick rocks, then that's a decision you make. But that's the point. It's your decision. You knew the consequences, you knew the benefits, you've mitigated the drawbacks. So whatever happens, you have a concept of what's called outcome independence. So she can
Mm.
leave or she can stay. Either way, I'm going to be fine. And this is like, and that's another thing, because like at the end of the book in Dread, there's I call 5 examples, like the 5 outcomes. There's you leave or you stay together, and you either still sleep with your wife or you don't sleep with your wife. And then the 5th example is everything just goes back to normal, right? So one of the guys, he decided, she's not worth it, divorced, ended up still like having her as a friend with benefits afterwards, which is a weird scenario. But then, there's problems with that. And are you willing to accept those problems over what you have now? Then that might be the path for you. Or another guy decided, you know what? She's just going to be who she is. The kids are like 5 years away. I'm just going to do my thing. And that was the guy that Litz, and his was great. It was just, I'm going to be better. And, for better or worse, I'm just going to suck it out or suck it up until the kids go out. And a third guy, I'm going to stay with my wife because I don't trust her to raise the kids by herself. And he decided to sleep with everybody in the neighborhood. And everybody kind of picked their decision. And yes, some people can have like a visceral reaction to like, oh, I don't like that, or I do like this, or morally that's wrong. But it's not their choice. It's his choice. And so there's no wrong way to do it, as long as you do it deliberately,
And you can tell me if I'm like completely off base here, but like in the same way, a very similar way that a lot of women are like, I don't need no man. This is kind of like a guy's way to say like, I don't need no woman. And I think that it's actually like kind of healthy to maintain your individuality to the point where like you can be happy and self-sufficient and not have to have a significant other in your life at any given time. And you're still going to be okay. Like it might hurt a little bit at first, but like you're going to be fine. That's kind of a big part of the point, right? Like is like you're going to get by no matter what. Not that
the
like,
difference is though, is they actually, I'll show you examples of guys getting by. Like one of my favorite examples in there, there's 2 of them. The one guy who gets divorced and then realizes sex is really easy since he was like in the 80s dating. It's like, they just throw it at you now. This is crazy. Right. Another guy realized, I don't know if I put it in the book or not, but the one thing, and like a lot of guys figured this out, it's like, even after the alimony, the child support, the new place, the second mortgage, all this stuff, I still have more disposable income. So he finds out like cheaper to keep her was like the biggest lie. He stuck with his marriage for like 5 years thinking that he would be destitute without her. And then he left and he's like, dude, I got enough money now. I can just start my hobbies again. This is great.
Yeah.
And then, a little bit of game and they get back in their dating and everybody's autistic now. Everybody's autistic. Everybody's fat.
Yeah. Everybody's fat and autistic.
Talks. They don't look up from their phone. You're like, just look up and talk to a girl in the eyes and holy shit.
And so there's like, I mean, there's a healthy side and a not healthy side to this. And it really is, it's completely dependent on one, I think your perspective on what reality is and how realistic you are with your own abilities to go get women or maintain relationships too. Because like there's a lot of guys out there that are just like
Useless.
chronically online, fat, ugly. They're 45 years old, living in their parents' basement.
Oh yeah.
And this does not work for everybody. Like to go up there and just like pretend like, oh, yeah, I can go get anybody I want. Cause like you might only actually not have that shot.
I agree with you there. Two things. One, military used to always teach the lowest common denominator. And I was an instructor at fleet school for 3-4 years. I made a vow, never did, like, I'm never going to base anything that I write down, any of the lessons that are in there, any of that. I'm not basing any of that on lowest common denominator. So frankly, if a guy is too stupid to be able to read, like there's an example there. We called him, he called himself Alpha as Wolf. For some reason, people loved using like canine references to their usernames and pen names. When he would get advice, and some of it's contradictory, some of it's, specific to certain situations. Sometimes things work, sometimes don't. He would just take it all and go with it. And then things would stop working. He'd blame everybody else but himself. We're like, dude, you're basically taking your car, you're driving to the store, and you decide to start flicking the locks, open the window, close the window, fiddle with the gear shift, and then you're wondering why you're not at the store. And then you're blaming the rest of us because you don't know how to drive. It's the same thing there. There's a certain level of agency that you have to accept. And you can make mistakes. The best thing to do is make mistakes, make small ones, make them fast, make them early, but just learn from them. Because that's the whole point of it. Like OODA loops, huge concept in both the books: observe, orient, decide, act. It's an old Air Force doctrine. The idea is the more times you can iterate on these loops, the faster you can maintain air superiority. Applied to relationships, it's the same thing. If you find that every time your wife's in a bad mood, if you start clapping back at her and you guys get into a huge fight over it, you observe, like, what happened there? What am I trying to achieve? You make an orientation, you decide, if she baits me with a fight, I'm just not going to fight. Just because she's in a bad mood doesn't mean I have to be in one. And then you make a decision, and then you act on it, and then you reflect, okay, did that achieve what I was trying to achieve? And when guys get it wrong, they think within the woman's frame, right? Where they go, well, she was freaking out and she was sad and she was crying, she was mad. It's like, yeah, that's not your goal though. Your goal wasn't to change her emotions.
It's so easy for a guy to just be like, yo, dude, well, turns out she was crazy. Yeah. Okay.
Oh, yeah, like, such an easy thing to say too.
There's some self-reflection that needs to happen too there.
Yeah. Oh yeah. You enable it. That's the thing. Yeah. Like, she can't fight if you're not fighting her. And the only reason you're fighting her is because she's emotional. Now you think you have to be emotional. And that's when you're an example of being within a girl's frame. It's like, you don't want to be in her frame. Were you in a good mood before she started micking at you? And why are you in a bad mood now? She doesn't have that kind of control over you. And so you kind of, there's a bunch of nice guy strategies that are based off of the work of Dr. Robert Glover and Dr. Manuel Smith, David Clare, Franco, bunch of other guys. There's a bunch of different references in Dread to show you, like, you really want to get into the nuts and bolts. And then you learn, like, why is it you're getting involved in these fights? There's some basic strategies like broken record, amuse mastery, agree and amplify, negative inquiry, negative assertion, nuking. And then you learn these things. And so that way you're able to control your emotions and act better. Now, that's not stoicism, because sometimes the best action for you is to like snap back. It's like, look, I told you to shut the fuck up. Or, I'm like, don't punch the drywall or anything.
Like, you want to stand up for yourself. Like,
stand up for yourself when appropriate.
Sure. Absolutely.
But again, it's not because she's driving the behavior. It's because you're driving the behavior.
No, you're enabling it a lot in a lot of these cases for sure. And I mean, I think that there are, there's some misconceptions with the whole dread thing, because when I first heard about it, I was like, this could be seen as like extremely toxic. And like, this could be like, like I can go get any woman I want at any time. So you need to sit your ass down type of thing. And I don't think that that's at all the point. No. Like, there's some assholes out there that for sure will use dread to do exactly that. And to treat women that way. And like, I don't think anybody in your side is telling you to disrespect women, because that is not a good way to fucking get women.
Well, I'm not going to say not to. Some women deserve disrespect. No, honestly, the reason it's called dread, I didn't come up with a name. Dread was just the word be used. And yeah, it sounds toxic and it sounds this and that. And yeah, it's not wrong, but that's the thing. When you get a guy like, let me put you at a user experience here. The kind of guy who originally found dread, like this stuff, it usually starts the same way. He's in like a 3 to 6 month dry spell. Sometimes one guy was like 10 years, like dead bedroom, no sex, whatever. Girl is nagging. out of pure desperation, sitting on the toilet typing, "Why won't my wife fuck me?" into his cell phone, and comes up on like the married red pill. And you'll find like Wine More Please talking about his post on Stop Tolerating Bullshit. And then he sees Dread. And when that guy he's angry, right? Guys are angry. There's a pain, there's a grievance. Those are the two things you need. It's a social emotion. And so when you get this guy that's angry, he's not going to be like, "Here's how you respect your wife," and he's like, "Fuck out of here. I'm pissed off. She's a bitch." But when you say Dread, "Oh yeah, fuck that bitch. I'll teach her a lesson." It sounds good. And then guys will read into it. It's like a bait and switch. The first positive bait and switch for men. And then a guy will get into it. He's like, "Wait a minute." Like a great example. There was a preparation for divorce strategy that we had from one of our lawyers, Red Curious, where he talks about what do you do when you want to make sure you can get custody. And you're thinking, like, it sounds like, oh, here's some manipulative shit you do here and you do shit here. And what he's describing is how to be an involved father. Make sure that you're the point of contact when the school has an emergency. Know your kids' clothes sizes, know their friends' parents, stuff like this. And then I remember one guy commented, he's like, "This sounds an awful lot like just basically act like a parent." He goes, "Yeah, because the judge, they hate making decisions. If they see that something is working, they will stick to it. And the reason you guys are getting all like divorce graped is because you decided my role is to make the money and my wife's role is to raise the kids. And then when you separate, the judge is like, "Sounds good. We'll just keep that going. You make the money and she'll get the kids." And guys are like, "This isn't fair." It's like, well, that's exactly what you told him you wanted. So how can you be mad at him for listening to you?
Right. And while I think like it is like extremely important for people to hold on to their independence in a relationship and not like, like completely give up their entire personality to the other person, what a lot of people do, men and women both will do this for the person. But I've seen a lot more men do this than, I don't know, maybe it's just because of this. I mostly hang out with men, but I would also say that like, that I think that there's a certain level of like malleability that you need to keep too, where there's obviously flexibility, especially if you're living with somebody. There's going to be shit where like your worlds collide and they don't fucking work. So you guys need to be fucking flexible with each other. And it's not going to be
like,
perfect.
Can you be more specific in what sense? Because it sounds like I don't want to turn
into I'm saying like
everything has to be fair and even, and
like scheduling things needs to be flexible. Like they're like, like the number one reason that there's really two reasons actually that people will get divorced more than any other. And it's money and it's religion. And money, especially, like you need to keep your independence. Like there's no reason that a woman shouldn't be able to walk out of a relationship.
Where'd you get those opinions you just had? Like how'd you get them?
I mean, this is just like from relationships that I've seen fall apart. Most of the time it's because they're arguing about money or because their two faiths collided and they went two different ways. So this is from experience. It's not necessarily a specific stat. This is just things that I've personally seen.
It's funny from the divorce, like the stuff that I know about, the biggest reason, and this is going to sound totally bad, but it's just because girls aren't happy. They're bored. That's the primary reason. The money and stuff, that's always, they can sometimes have those as excuses, but they're never the biggest reason. It's really just because she's not happy. There's always like a big joke. They used to say happy with like 4 A's because it's always seen as such a flippant reason to do it. But yeah, I mean, because money, like poor couples stay together forever. Rich couples stay together forever. They both get divorced. Money doesn't really matter. The arguments about money aren't about money. The arguments about money is either somebody is spending more than they earn or somebody thinks they're entitled to more money than they have.
I think that like a lot of times actually like I've had past relationships, especially where you're bringing home a lot of money, but the money's going out a lot faster than it's coming in because you're coming home to like, I don't know, like 10 or 12 Amazon packages on your doorstep or something like that. Do you know what I mean?
Like money is not the problem. Boundaries are the problem. Sure. Honey, you're spending us out of house and home. There's actually a thing in Dread on that too. It's called gaining control of the treasury.
Well, I guess my point is like, there's no reason that a woman shouldn't be able to walk out of a relationship and not be able to keep her financial independence as well. Is kind of like what I'm saying. And like,
it's kind of outside my scope, but sure, do what you do.
You know what I mean? Like, I don't know. Like we have like I think pretty like kind of similar opinions on the whole marriage thing. Like I said, like the whole, there's nothing you can get out of it if you're not religious that you can't get in a long-term relationship. I would definitely die on that hill. Like I think if kids are involved, you should have some kind of probably contract to make sure the kids are taken care of.
You can't do that though. You have to have consideration. Like, you cannot make a contract that breaks the law. Otherwise, it's null and void. Like, that much, right? That's basic contract law.
Yeah.
As soon as kids become involved, like, prenups or all that personal things there, as soon as kids become involved, there's statutes in place that have to do that. And if anything in your contract contradicts the statutes, it gets thrown out. So it's not worth the paper it's printed on. This is kind of one of those things. I hope I articulated it well enough, but I don't know if I did, where everybody's trying to look for some kind of like magic. Well, you just got to make sure your boundaries are good, or 6-pack abs, or have the perfect prenup. And it's like, there's no guarantees. There's inherent risk here. And I think as a guy, the best attitude to have towards this is understand what it is you're paying, because that's going to impact your ability to have expectations. A lot of guys have no expectations of their girl.
Right.
Like,
well, a lot of guys are so inexperienced with women that they don't know what to expect. So
and they think that whatever they get, this is what I deserve, and it's whatever. And the girl doesn't know any different, because especially pretty girls, everybody treats them like gold. So she gets in there, like, why wouldn't you treat me like gold? That's what people are normally like. And of course they get bored, and that's where the 12 Amazon packages a day come from, and spending them at a house and home. It's just boredom. And then cheating happens usually because of boredom. Although Rolo and I argue a bit over the David Buss's either mate switching hypothesis or the alpha fucks beta bucks dual mating strategy, but that's like a technical nuts and bolts. I don't think you want that conversation here.
Wait, beta cucks? You talking about Myron?
No, I wish. Does he even have a girlfriend or boyfriend or anything?
I don't know. I just wanted to go back
a hair transplant
about Myron.
Yeah, I have no patience for the guy. You know what? I understand libertarians now when they see like online libertarians, because they make them look so bad.
Well, dude, I mean, you guys fight back and forth all the fucking time, just like libertarians fight back and forth all the time. You guys are full of just as much autism as, maybe not as much autism as libertarians.
You know what that is, though? That's actually kayfabe. I talk about it a lot. It's the opposite of kayfabe.
Okay.
Do you get for the audience, if you don't know, kayfabe is theatrics treated as if it was real. Pro wrestling. Like Hulk Hogan fighting the Ultimate Warrior. You have to believe he's the Ultimate Warrior. You have to believe that's Hulk Hogan. It's really just an act. It's all scripted, whatever. Doctors, military, police, same way. The thin blue line. Plop's always like, with a doctor, you can amputate the wrong arm, and other doctors will circle the wagons, talk about doctors because they have an image that they want to uphold as like, we're the healers of the sick. We have the power of life and death. In reality, they're just a bunch of nerds who have studied a lot on the human body, and they hand out referrals all day.
We just had an absolute L posted in the chat, and I just need to share that real quick. Meredith said, I find Myron physically attractive, and it's not good. Give her, man. Back, dude. I'm not going to forgive that. That's gross.
Yeah. But that's the point. And then with the red pill specifically, it's kind of like software engineering. We're absolutely ruthless. If you're not useful, we don't care. There's no in-group loyalty. There's no kayfabe. And the idea is you end up with, I would argue, you end up with a better body of work, but you end up with a worse public perception. And that's why I don't really worry too much when everybody's like, oh, red pill's bad, this, and these guys are horrible. I'm like, we're gonna be like, there's no way to talk about this.
You can't take the human out of the human. You know what I'm saying? Like, so like, just in the same way that like, obviously there's no perfect human out there. Like libertarians, we idolize people like, I don't know, Marie Rothbard, Ron Paul, Dave Smith, if you're like in the current shit or whatever. And
I know Ayn Rand. That's about it.
Yeah, I mean, sure, maybe some do idolize Ayn Rand or Milton Friedman, Mises, but like none of these people were fucking perfect. They've all like done something that's gonna let you down at some point, and like it's the same thing here. Like like I know you and Rolo aren't gonna admit that you're perfect humans. You don't, like you guys.
Oh, dude, I call myself woefully average. Woefully average.
Well, like. You're not gonna like, at least pretend that you're perfect. You know what I mean? Like no one does that. There are people.
I play Tekken for pennies. How great could I be?
Well, like I think that might be the difference. Actually, the biggest difference between people like you and people like Myron is that he pretends his shit don't stink. You know what I mean? All the time.
Ask models Instagram.
I've never seen this dude fucking admit that he was wrong, even though he posts nothing but L's all the fucking time. Yeah. Andrew Wilson does this a lot too, bringing in the Christ pill people a little bit who are also completely unbearable. No.
Good dude. The brand is, it's, it's like Star Wars. I love the original series. I hate Star Wars fans.
Sure.
And I'll just leave that there for you guys to connect the dots.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it's a lot of guys are trying to be, they call them like Instagram ass models. There's been a
Mm.
bunch of them before that people have never heard of. There used to be this one guy, Daniel, called himself Gay Lube Oil. He was basically the same as Myron. His shit don't stink, all this stuff. Absolutely autistic. It was just ridiculous. There was guys that used to brag like in Reddit threads how I have flair. Do you know who the fuck I am? We're like, are you fucking serious?
And like everything's kind of blown up over the last couple of years, right? Like really it has like on the internet, online. Well, that's kind of like where I'm getting is like people are focusing their autism with social media. And like, I don't think it's a coincidence that everyone's doing this around the same time that the Fauci ouchies were being mandated too. There could be
let's not forget this election year.
I know. Well, the election year's here. There's and then we have Canadians that are part of the PSYOP, trying to, infiltrate things and in the world.
We're talking like Crowder and Gavin McInnes and talking about those guys,
or Canadian rappers such as Ben Shapiro.
You'd leave Cardinal Official out of this. He is a wonderful man with a wonderful rap career. I will not hear this or Snow. Don't you dare, sir.
Okay. Well,
you're like, who the fuck is this?
I don't know the first guy you said at all. But when people think about like Canadian rappers, they think about like Drake, obviously, or and Drake. I don't get it. Like I liked him more when he was in a wheelchair for Degrassi. I used to watch that shit back when I was like a kid. But like, Drake, I don't know why we put up this guy and platform this guy who just looks like he's, I don't know. He had everything handed to him. He looks like he has downs. I mean, nothing against people with downs, but he looks mentally unwell all the time. I guess here's a little thing. We need to decide who's the better Canadian rapper between Snow and Ben Shapiro. And I think that like the only way we can do that is by pulling up the shit, like, scene by scene.
Am I allowed? I want to hate on Ben, old Benny boy, but I have like 3 internet rules. No Austrian painter jokes, no child diddler jokes, and no making fun of Democrats in an election year. And I think I'm breaking at least 2 rules if I make fun of little Ben. So I don't know what to do here.
Oh God. Well, we'll give this a blast real quick. Basically, it's licky boom boom down, or we got this dude. And actually, like, I'm not retarded. I do know that Ben Shapiro isn't actually Canadian, but he sang on this song with a Canadian, which makes him Canadian by default. I think that's just the rules because Canada doesn't.
Fair. You take Jim Carrey and you give us Ben Shapiro.
Yeah. I'll take Jim Carrey all fucking day, dude.
Guys, why would you do that?
Jim Carrey's a legend. Ben Shapiro, not so much. So we'll go through this.
I'm the man who don't respect. Let's look at the stats. I've got the facts. My money like Lizzo, my pockets are fat. Homie, I'm epic. Don't be a whack. Dog, it's a yarmulke. Homie, no cap. Look at the graphs. Look at my charts. You're blowing money on strippers and cars. You go into prison. I'm on television. Dogs, no one knows who you are. Keep hating on me on the internet.
I don't know, man.
What in the fuck is this?
Y'all live with your parents. Nikki, take some notes.
Remember
I don't
Rebecca
think that I can
Friday?
actually tolerate any more of that song. I've only listened all the way through it one time, and I just pulled out that little portion right there. Snow's better than Ben Shapiro. I think 100%. That we can settle that debate.
Rebecca Black did Friday. She got hate for a decade, and now Benny does that same thing. We're like, this is great. Are you kidding me?
I think there's like much more sophisticated art that comes out of Canada. In the form of
miserable
punk rock and roll. I know you mentioned before the show that you're a Rush fan. And well, also,
I don't know. My older sister was a Rush fan. I was actually a fan of the Tragically Hip, which no Americans have ever heard of, but it's
I
probably
have
the
no
best
idea who
Canadian
the
band
fuck
ever.
that is, dude.
Oh my god, it's like here I'll put it in the thing here. Tragically Hip. They are an Ontario band,
Okay.
and they kind of have a mix of like grunge rock and folk aesthetics. But as soon as you hear them, everybody likes them. Nobody doesn't like them. There's another great band, Big Sugar. They are a part reggae, part blues, part hard rock band. Fucking awesome. Guy's in his 50s now, and I went to go see him in concert. Big fat uncle, still slays, man. His shit slaps.
Nice. Yeah, so like, I know that like Sum 41 came from Canada, and they've been one of my favorite, kind of more favorite punk bands. Propagandhi came out of Canada. I don't know how many of the more punk
Wait,
bands.
Crocodile Dundee?
Propagandhi.
Oh,
You're close. The Flatliners.
and you don't know Big Sugar. You don't know Great Big Sea. I
well,
know you know the Bare Naked Ladies.
Dude, like I'm not even joking when I'm saying that Americans a lot of times just forget that Canada even exists. Like I say that as someone that's from New Hampshire that could literally be in Canada within 3 hours.
Hey, you're in maple syrup country.
I am actually. And so I'm not gonna lie to you.
You in Vermont.
I do want to go to Canada to do some hunting. I'm not sure how you feel about any of that shit, but I was a lifelong hunter, so I would love to get up there one of these days and do a little bit of hunting. That's kind of one of my guilty pleasures in life is getting away from the world.
Our gun stuff sucks here so bad.
Oh, I know.
The Liberals, every time they get in power, they always do some kind of like gun banning registry. Like they tried this thing called the long gun registry. It was like a $5 billion money sink. Nothing ever worked, but it made it like people who wanted to own guns had a harder time doing it. And criminals were like, I don't care. And they just did another one where they started banning a bunch of hunting rifles. It got so bad that they had to pay some outside company to come in here and hunt. Like we had to cull a bunch of deer with helicopters. They wasted like $1 million hunting like 30 deer or something stupid like that on the island.
That happens all the time though. That actually happened in Idaho here. They had some kind of really restrictive laws on certain things, and now they're like paying people to come and hunt. Even in California, California is like the best example because like being overrun by wild boars right now. Apparently, huge fucking wild boars. Like I'm talking like the size, like 6 feet long wild boars that are just massive, and they're just destroying people's property. And they like are literally hiring people because they keep the limit of how many are allowed to be harvested every year in Canada to a very small minimum, and they don't put them out on public property intentionally. Like they try to like entrap them or whatever, and people have to pay to go hunt, right? And but that doesn't change. Like they get out there in the wild, they start breeding with normal pigs, and that's how you get these big ass 6 foot fucking 400-pound wild boars. Yeah, feral hogs running around destroying everything. And now they're like paying hunters to come in and take care of the boars because they're just not raising the number of that's allowed to be harvested in the state.
Dude, so that's the part of the competence crisis that nobody really notices. There's that, and forestry is the other big one. We used to have like a wonderful 100-year forestry plans in BC. I'm assuming the West Coast, Pacific Northwest has that too, where they knew because you had to clear cut and burn out things. Otherwise, you get a bunch of brush on the ground. So they stopped doing that because they wanted to protect the environment. And that's why all these wildfires are getting huge now.
Yeah.
And they're blaming it on climate change.
Another great example of that because they just had a one that took out like, I think it was almost 2 million acres. That was the last year that I lived out there. I was only there for like 3 years, but they had a fire that took out almost 2 million acres. And it's all because they don't do controlled brush fires anymore or controlled fires at all to get rid of all that shit.
Horrible forestry management.
Taking out entire towns and displacing like thousands and thousands of people every year, costing billions and billions. And now there's no insurance companies that will actually help cover it anymore. There's only 2 in the entire state of California that cover fire damage. And they're so expensive. Like literally one of my friends pays $800 a month for fire insurance on his house to live in California. Yeah, it's fucking insane. And that's low price, by the way. Like
I was going to say at a certain
like
point,
$3,000 a month for his house.
At a certain point, you just pocket that, put it in a Roth, and then just buy yourself a new house when it burns down.
Yeah, I mean that would make sense. But I there's a lot of places that require you to have fire insurance, obviously. Because, if you die or something, like there's some liabilities for the government or some shit.
Sounds like Canada. That sounds so.
California basically is like Canada. California basically is kind of, very Canadian in a lot of its policies and rules. And I don't know, I'm over that shit.
We beat it. Oh, dude, we're gonna talk a law. The euthanasia. I don't know if euthanasia has that crossed your radar at all.
Euthanasia, yeah,
Yeah.
yeah, for sure. Yeah,
Okay,
yeah. I'm
Canada
also like
has-
a pro-assisted suicide, by the way. So
I am pro-assisted suicide. I am anti-government mandated programs to do it because I've never seen them run a program right. And as soon as you make it somebody's government bureaucratic job to handle it, they're going to try and incentivize it. And that's what we're getting in Canada. So California and Canada both started our MAID, medically assisted something in dying programs, 2015. Since then, California has had 400 MAID assisted deaths. Do you know what Canada's had? 10,000.
damn,
10,000. And here's the problem.
they just be nuking the nursing homes, dude.
Yeah, well, the people that build the infrastructure, the governance, like how is this done? What's the qualifications? It's the same group that's performing the euthanasia.
Of course it is. So they have a financial incentive. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a huge basic governance is like separation of duties, right? You don't want any conflicts of interest.
I'm just putting this together right now. I think that actually someone else put this together for me, but everything makes sense now.
Yeah.
The reason Canada doesn't exist is because California is Canada.
Same population. We should have the same economy, but California is just crushing it. And we're not even close. Both got film industries. We're both full of hippies. Actually, I think it's only 30%.
Yeah. You also got a lot of like really stringent truckers up there, I heard.
Oh, dude, the truckers. I love the truckers. You know what? Do you really want to get into this one?
Sure.
This is fun. Okay. The truckers have been a worldwide example of like Chinese CCP grade psyop in real time. So how it originally happened is Canada wanted to, big business. We have a lot of monopolies up here. And so they wanted transport to be cheaper. So what do? They bring in scab workers and like big mega companies to run the trucks. Problem with that is most truckers are independent companies. The guy owns his own truck. He does his own business, he pays his own insurance, has his own safety standards. We have like a really good network on that. So these large Walmart-sized trucking companies come in, they bring in underqualified workers, and they cause a lot more accidents and a lot more deaths on the road. Same as with the fires, insurance starts to go up, and it starts to push these truckers out of the industry. Added to that, kids nowadays, we see what the economics are like, and so nobody's joining the industry, so it's dying off.
Right.
So a lot of these truckers, there was actually 2 protests that started the same day, and the CBC, our national newspaper, got it wrong. They thought the original one was the Freedom Convoy one, and the original one was just like 20 trucks, and they were doing like a West Coast Island thing about the insurance and the scab workers, which these ones were too. But this one, 10,000 trucks. It's something. I think somebody did the math. It was like 16% of all of our transport capability was on this protest. Cross-country
crazy. That is insane.
Oh, dude, it gets even better. So there's like a big symbolic thing about like trucking across the country because one of our national heroes, this guy, Terry Fox, you've heard of Terry Fox, Rick Hansen, lost his leg. He ran across the country to show awareness for cancer. He's kind of like the Wayne Gretzky of charity in Canada. Everybody knows who he is. If you go onto my channel, I actually have a short where I show like the Terry Fox Memorial was in Ottawa, and the trucker protests were actually cleaning off the statue. That's how big of a deal it is. So they had all gone there, and it took like an hour if you were to stand and people would just watch the convoy from all across the country, got down to Ottawa, and all they did is they propped down, they just parked, and they're like, we're gonna wait here until the government hears our grievances about this stuff. And there was like the COVID mandates, because that was it. On top of it, insurance pushing them out of the industry, no replacing of the workforce, and a lot of the scab workers brought in, driving down wages, driving up safety costs or safety concerns, and it saves a couple bucks for your groceries, right?
Yep.
So the government just ignored them for 3 weeks. Trudeau went on vacation, whatever. And these guys were like, okay, we're going to be here for a while. So they started shoveling the snow. They started handling city services. They were taking out the trash. They were feeding the homeless. They were like all this stuff. It was at the point where they had such a well-oiled machine because these people are all logistic professionals.
Yep. Right.
They had like fuel coming in. They had food and that going out. They had trash services. Like everything was handled very well. They had like a headquarters where they could do all the media stuff. And you would watch because everybody was on TikTok at the time. And the truckers would be like, hey, The police have barricaded all these doors on this block, and there's no truckers there. So just, if you see a news story that they start talking about truckers, raiding this neighborhood and breaking windows and that's not us. And then you would watch like the CBC or CTV News, and they'd be like, truckers were beating up things. They started a fire in this apartment complex. You find out that was some communist Redditor started it, trying to blame the truckers on it, got caught on camera. And then once they saw that, they canceled it. People were like, they're assaulting us. We had a official, not a hearing on it. And we had interviews with these people. It turns out it's the citizens were assaulting truckers. They were egging them, smashing windows, stuff like that. The truckers were nice and calm. The worst they could say is one guy said he could smell diesel outside from the trucks running, and it was like terrorism. That's this guy, Paul Champ. He's such a...
That's wild. Environmental terrorism is those people are fucking insane.
Yeah. But I actually went off brand to do a documentary on my channels because I was like, this is fascinating. And you would watch like the news. They would say, like, this trucker says these guys are evil. It turns out the trucker was actually
that. I would love to watch that for sure.
Yeah. And the guys the news would hire, he was like a journalist that used to work for CBC, and he just happened to own a truck. And so they got him to be the voice of the truckers that said he will speak for all truckers. It was such like blatant propaganda. It was fucking insane. So anyways, I can talk about this forever. I don't want you to waste your time on this one.
No, yeah, you're good. I actually like, this is great conversation. I try to like, keep things a little bit like outside the box. We talk a little bit about everything here, obviously. But I don't know. So obviously during the whole Rona bullshit that was happening a couple of years, I was in California. Everything was locked down. You're in Canada. Everything's locked down. And you're on the other side of that now. Hopefully a lot of the restrictions and shit aren't as much prominent up there anymore.
They're gone, but everybody just kind of decided to give up on them. And here, I'll put a short one. I put them in the private chat for you. Dude, they were the worst here. It was like they figured out they couldn't keep you in your home, so they forced everything else to shut down. Right. It was amazing. Like constitutionals, everybody would just walk their dogs. That was the only thing we could do. That, buy food and weed. That was it.
Nice.
Crazy.
Nice.
Yeah.
Well,
it wears thin real quick though.
Oh yeah, for sure. But okay. So, I guess just we're kind of like wrapping up on the hour here. But I want you to kind of like tell everyone where they can find your stuff. Because I think you're shadow banned on Twitter, possibly. I tried to search for you, and sometimes it comes up, sometimes it doesn't.
I post goatsy a lot when people annoy me, so that's I understand.
But yeah, tell people where they can find your stuff, where they can buy your books, which I think everyone should check out. Read them, give them some consideration. I'm going to read through them, and I'll give you like my honest opinion once I'm finished up with it. Now that I'm not on my heavy painkillers anymore, I should be able to pay more attention and not be completely retarded while I'm reading it. So,
oh yeah, love it or hate it, as long as you're honest about it. The easiest thing, there's ryanstone.com where I kind of link to everything else, but the easiest thing is my YouTube channel. That's youtube.com/ or the @ and then Ryan Stone. That's where I have most of my red pill stuff. I have the podcast Red Morning. I have about 5 different series. The most important one is the sidebar, and that's, everything that's ever been talked about in the red pill. There's this thing called the sidebar, which is like everything you need to know. This is the Rollo books, the Glover books. It's essentially like as close as you're going to get to a university syllabus on it. So it's all there. It's meant to be while you're reading the books, to have it there as well. I have a gaming channel because I don't know, there was like a
Did you see that?
No. It's because when I went on your whole ladies channel with her and Kyle, and the video they put up was where like Tate's like, his wife's a 4 and he plays Tekken for pennies. So I actually started a series on a gaming channel called Tekken for Pennies. It was so goddamn good. I was like, I gotta work with that.
Nice.
And that's digital, Ryan. That's the gaming channel. The books are all on Amazon, but the easy way to do it is just ryanstone.com/dread, and it'll take you right to there if you want to.
Ryan,
aside from that, I also have a
R-I-A-N.
Substack. Yeah.
Because you spell your name all goofy like a Canadian. So
my mom did that because my dad wanted to name me Ryan as my middle name. She's like, fine. And she's just to fuck with him. She spelled it wrong. So that's why it's I.
Can you do me a favor real quick?
Yeah.
Can you say sorry?
Sorry? Oh, sorry.
I had to get it out. I had to do it.
Jesus Christ, bud. You keep that up, I'm going to start feeding you some shots. Let's go back.
Dude, have you seen, you've seen Letterkenny, I'm assuming?
Yeah, he's a Canadian, I think.
Yeah, it's a whole
He's from Kenny and Spenny, right?
Yeah, that whole show is fucking hilarious. They're all Canadian comedians, and that's like my whole idea of Canada. It's just the boonies everywhere and
Oh,
a
dude,
bunch of
Trailer
hicks
Park
that
Boys is so much better.
I don't actually. You know what? You're probably right there. I like Eastbound and Down too. That's a great fucking show.
Oh.
You should definitely check that one out. But Ryan, I really appreciate you coming on. I'm going to
Thanks for
put you
having me, man.
backstage, and we can talk again in just a moment.
Sure.
Definitely would love to have you on again, and we can actually dive into some of the content of these if you want to. I know that like you talk about this shit all the time. It's got to be just like same exact talking points every time you go on some show. But I hope this was a different type of show to go on to just shoot the shit.
Man, it was fun. It was a conversation. You're actually a really good host. I'm surprised.
Oh, thanks. Appreciate that.
Like, I mean that in a pleasant way. Like most people aren't very good at this. You're really good at this.
Oh, thanks. It means a lot.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, I think I'll keep doing it. So I'm fucking committed now. So all right, man. Well, cool. I'll catch you in a minute. And yeah, I'm gonna wrap up the show tonight with a word from our sponsor, which is the one and only Blood of Tyrants wine. Are you looking for a nice night in while sipping on the blood of your enemies and supporting the destruction of the tyrannical state? Look no further than Blood of Tyrants wine. It's a nice Merlot distributed by activists you know and love. Bloodoftyrants.wine is the place to go. Use promo code FSM to get 10% off your first order. That's bloodoftyrants.wine, or click the link in the description below and use promo code FSM. And then also, just so you guys know, I have 2 other shows this week. I'm going to have Dave Casey coming on the show. We had to reschedule from Sunday. And then I also have, he's coming on the show, I believe, Friday night. And then on Sunday night, I've got the one and only Dan Smots. Both really great guys, both in awesome bands. Looking forward to listening to their music a little bit and shooting the shit with them as well. So I hope you guys enjoyed the show, and we will catch you again on Friday and Sunday. See ya.